Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became a dragon champion after two legendary swords fell into his world. Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Back in the field, Naruto still kept his sword aimed right at Kankuro, but his gaze was directed at the new arrival Gaara. Something about him seemed very familiar to him for some reason, and when Kankuro directed his attention to Gaara, the dragon champion relaxed his stance and went into a neutral position. Gaara then directed his attention squarely on Kankuro. You're becoming an embarrassment to the village. Have you forgotten the reason we came all the way here to Konoha, Kankuro? I doubt it involves picking fights with kids at random. I know, but they started the whole thing, they provoked us you see. Spare me the excuses, keep that up, and I'll kill you in a heartbeat. Yeah, right, I was totally out of line. Gaara then directed his attention to the gathered people, including Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto, along with Konohamaru and his friends. I'm sorry for the trouble he might have caused. Gaara then faded into sand and disappeared from the branch and quickly reappeared on the ground in the same swirl of sand, allowing Naruto to further study this new arrival. He was then called by the voice of his sword. There's something about that one, Master Naruto. I feel a source of evil buried inside of his body, and it might have a connection to his ability to manipulate sand and that gourd he carries. That's not good. We'll have to keep tabs on him then. What about the other two? What can you sense from them? Believe it or not, Master, they appear to be siblings. From what I can sense, the blonde girl with the giant metal case is the eldest of the three, with the one named Kankuro, carrying that thing on his back to be the middle sibling, and the one named Gaara appears to be the youngest. Gaara then faced both Kankuro and the still unnamed girl and spoke to them in the same manner. Let's go. We didn't come here to play games and we've wasted too much time here already. Alright, sure, I get it. The three then began to leave with the shorter one moving ahead of the other two, showing that despite being around Naruto's original height, he had authority in the team he was working with, and considering the reactions he made the others give out, he was more than capable of being the one to give the orders. Sakura, however, was not going to let this matter go off just like that. However, it wasn't in her nature to do so in the first place. She moved past Naruto and then spoke to the three. Hold it, you three. The girl in the team was the one who answered for the rest of her group. What is it? I can tell that from those symbols you have on those forehead protectors, you're genin from the hidden village of the sand. While it's true that the land of wind and the land of fire are allies, no ninja from one village can come to another without a special reason, so why are you here? You really don't know. Have you guys been living under a rock or something? Of course we have a reason for being here in Konoha, and we are genin from the village of hidden sand, and we're here to take part of the Chunin exams. Get the idea now why we're here. Konohamaru then spoke as he recalled the things his grandfather taught to him about traditional events being hosted in villages such as Konoha. Oh yeah, that's right. This is supposed to be the time of the year for the Chunin exams. The Chunin exams is a special occasion where all genin will be able to enter, and if they pass well, they get the rank of Chunin, which is a step closer to being Jonin, and even better, you can be closer to being Hokage. Sakura was a bit surprised. In truth, she had heard about the Chunin exams being held, but she certainly wasn't aware of them being held at this time of the year. She had thought that they would be a few months more from now. Naruto had to smile at that as he knew that the sound of all that is great news, namely since he was interested still in becoming Hokage, apart from taking his place as a dragon champion. However, he still needed to know a bit more about just who these three were, namely the one with the gourd. With that in mind, he moved forward and called out, "Hold it, you three, you might as well tell us your full names so we'll all know just who you are." The blonde turned and gave Naruto a sly and suggestive smile that made him raise his eyebrows at that, and she spoke to him. Do you mean me? Why not? After all, it is considered a courtesy for the ladies to go first. Ladies first, huh? You're a gentleman. I've never been called lady before. For you handsome, I'll be more than happy to give you my name. I'm Tamari. Greetings to you then, Tamari. I apologize for the situation before as well, and I guess I should say welcome to Konoha, and I hope that you enjoy your time here during the Chunin exams. The food's really great here, namely the ramen. You should try some when you get the chance. Tamari smiled back slyly at the greeting and invitation and was about to reply to Naruto, until the one named Kankuro turned and glared at Naruto. Hey you, don't get any bright ideas, you're not worthy of attention from my Kankuro. He was asking for my name, what's with you? Naruto sighed and looked at the bickering pair of siblings. It's all right, Tamari, it's a brother thing, and I take it that the one with the gourd is your youngest brother. The young man stopped moving and turned around and spoke to Naruto while examining the blonde ninja before him. That's correct. Tamari is my sister, and Kankuro is my brother, and I am known as Gaara of the desert. I'm curious about you as well. You're different for some reason than some of the genin I've met. What's your name? Well then, you gave yours, so I shall give mine. I am Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha. The two genin stared each other down. Gaara took a look at the sword that Naruto had in his hand, and Naruto looked at the gourd behind Gaara's back. The sand ninja studied the sword and could see a faint but very powerful aura coming from the weapon, and his eyes widened slightly at the feeling of energy that was coming from it, the blonde before him, and the tattoo on the blonde's arm. It excited Gaara in a way that he never thought possible as he smiled a sadistic smile, a smile that unnerved both Tamari and Kankuro when they saw it, and made Sakura gasp, along with Konohamaru, Udon and Moegi, and even Sasuke was a bit concerned. Naruto, however, was not going to back down and smiled right back, making Gaara smile even more. You're very interesting, Naruto Uzumaki. Far more than I thought. I'll look forward to fighting you in the tournament. Same here, Gaara of the desert. And Naruto offered a salute with holy talon, and to the shock of his siblings most of all, Gaara smiled wider and created a blade of pure sand in his hand and gave the same salute to Naruto. Afterwards, Gaara lost the smile and looked at the two of them. Come on, you two, we have to meet up with sensei. Right, Gaara. Tamari followed Kankuro and Gaara, but the blonde female genin gave a smile to Naruto and a wink that made Naruto blush slightly, much to Tamari's enjoyment. Besides, not only was Naruto the first to call her a lady, but he seemed to be able to stand up to her brother Gaara, and instead of killing the blonde hottie instantly for that, Gaara was excited for the chance to fight him. While that made her worry, she couldn't help but feel that there just might be something different about the blonde. This is getting very interesting. As soon as the Sand siblings left the site, Sakura walked over to Naruto. A part of her was relieved that the one named Gaara didn't attack, and the other one was a bit more complicated. The very moment she noted the sly and suggestive looks that the blonde Sand Kunoichi, she couldn't help but feel jealous. What? No. That's a bloody lie. I'm not jealous of Naruto getting looks from that Sand Kunoichi. Quit lying, girl. You saw the way she smiled at him. That girl likes Naruto. We can't let her get her hands on him. So what? Okay, I admit Naruto's cute now. Not cute, girl. He's hot, as in smoking hot. Shut up. You okay, Naruto? I'm fine, Sakura-chan. Are you all right? Sakura didn't answer at first as she found herself staring at Naruto's blue eyes, which appeared to be in a much deeper and more attractive shade of blue, and tinged with deep silver edges around the irises. Despite herself, she was getting herself drawn into those eyes. She managed to rein in her thoughts and actions and spoke in answer to Naruto's question. I'm fine, thank you for asking. Hey, you two, are you all fine? Naruto and Sakura turned to see Sasuke, who walked over, and he still managed to keep his now considered normal look. But in truth, Sasuke was seething as he saw how skilled Naruto had become. Not only was he able to move with considerable speed, when he tossed the sword, he was able to avoid hitting either the grandson of the fourth Hokage or the others, and he was moving at such a speed that it rivaled Haku's easily. Yeah, we're all fine, Sasuke-kun. Naruto merely looked at Sasuke and decided not to think about it for now. However, the recent bits of information that were told to him did give him some new things to think about. However, he decided that it would be far better that he got all the facts right before he made a decision. He smiled as he recalled the looks he got in his new garb as he had packed up his older clothes in a bag and left it in the care of the clothing store. He had managed to get enough money to buy his new clothes and made some mystical modifications to them when he bought the clothes. He was unaware of the fact that the female store clerk had seen his looks, and despite able to recognize him as the supposed container of the demon fox, she was awed by his looks and agreed to sell the clothes at half price. A bargain indeed, and Naruto smiled warmly at her for that, and she blushed bright red and bade him farewell with the promise to keep his old clothes safe until he came back to pick them up. Hey Sakura-chan, do you think there's a chance we could be able to take the Chunin exams? The pink-haired Kunoichi thought about that bit of information carefully and thought about what she had heard about the Chunin exams. Some of the things she heard were not very appealing, but if that was the way for them to advance to the next rank, it was understandable in her mind why genin would come from all the world to participate. Maybe, but I don't think we can do that right now. From what I've heard, it's all up to the Jonin squad leader, and also the team must undergo a certain number of missions before they are eligible to take the exam, and so far we only took on a few missions, including the one in Wave Country, despite the dangers we actually found along the way. Either way, however, the whole choice is up to Kakashi-sensei if he'll let us be part of the teams in the Chunin exams. Naruto smiled at the idea and boasted once more. Ha, we can do it, you know. With your sharp mind, Sasuke's Sharingan, and my own skills, we can ace the Chunin exams and be all Chunin with no problem whatsoever. Besides, it'll be awesome to meet all the genin from other countries and villages and see what they've got, so we can really test ourselves. I can bet that there's some really tough genin teams out there, and with them all coming here for the exams, it's going to be one hell of a few days, or a week if we're really lucky. I am so into this. Sakura was surprised at the excitement Naruto had, and even Sasuke was taken aback by Naruto's actions and words as well. And despite his growing dislike for Naruto, the Uchiha couldn't help but smirk slightly at the idea. Besides, if what he heard was true, he would no longer have to go out on missions if all the other hidden villages genin were coming here to Konoha. Plus, Naruto did have a valid point, that many opponents would certainly be a good test of the Sharingan he had with him and allow it to grow. For once, Dobi, I agree with you. Sakura was surprised at that statement, and so was Naruto as the blonde ninja and dragon champion looked at his dark-haired teammate with surprise. Did Sasuke just agree with me? That's a first. Sakura looked at her two teammates and mentally sighed in relief. At least they were on the same page today, and that was a seriously wonderful blessing in her mind, considering how they act towards one another before. You do? Yes. The exams seem promising from the sound of it. Naruto, Sasuke-kun, I know you guys are eager to go in, but we still need to wait for Kakashi-sensei's decision if he's going to let us take the exams. Sasuke nodded as Sakura did have a point in that regard. Well, either way, I'm ready to give the Chunin exams a shot if we get the go signal. I'll see you guys later. I've got to go home and deal with some matters. As Sasuke left, Naruto then spoke to Konohamaru. Hey Konohamaru, can you do me a favor? Sure thing, boss. Name it and the Konohamaru Corps will get right on it. I want you to go by the Hokage Tower and ask your grandpa on when the Chunin exams are going to start. I want to know just when it starts so I can have plenty of time. Time for what, boss? Why, to train, of course. No way am I going to join the Chunin exams without an edge. Oh yeah. If you run into my Jonin-sensei, get the info on where he'll want to meet with us on the off chance he lets us into the exams. Got it, boss one. Come on guys, let's get going. Naruto smiled at Konohamaru as the kid rushed off to do as he asked of him, with Moegi and Udon coming along as well. He then turned and noted a good deal of worry on Sakura's face. He was surprised and worried about Sakura and walked over to his pink-haired teammate. Sakura-chan, are you all right? I don't know about the exams. I don't think I can keep up with you two. Keep up? What do you mean? Look Naruto, you've changed, not just physically, but your powers have grown, and Sasuke-kun's an Uchiha after all, and sooner or later, he can use the Sharingan. Me, I don't even have a signature jutsu like you two. You have the Kage Bushin, and Sasuke-kun has the Uchiha clan jutsus. I don't have one. Both of you have far better chances at passing the Chunin exams than me. Don't say that, Sakura-chan. Look, I might have the new look, the garb, and the abilities, and well, the sword, but I'm still me. Okay. We started as a team and we have to end as a team. I'm not lying about your sharp mind, you know. You've got more brains than me, and I can bet Sasuke doesn't have the same intelligence as you. You've got an edge. Keep up your spirits, 'cause I like it better when you're fired up and eager, 'cause that's the Sakura I know. Sakura didn't know what to say to that and she couldn't help but smile a bit and nod a little. But before anything else could be said, a growl in his stomach told Naruto and Sakura that he had apparently skipped break fast, making Naruto blush and scratch his head as he looked in apology to Sakura. I'm sorry Sakura-chan, but I haven't eaten a thing since this morning, so I've got to go. Besides, just take a break and relax, we've got plenty of free time, so just relax, okay? Sure. Unknown to Naruto and Sakura, they were being watched by 3 other genin, but they were not of either Konoha or that of the Sand, but a totally different village. They were dressed in a different manner of dress. One of them wore a forehead protector in a face guard format and had wild, spiky hair. The others wore the usual headband-style forehead protectors, but were different. The only female of the bunch appeared to have long hair that reached to her ankles, while the other male had his face wrapped in bandages and had only the right side of his face and his right eye exposed. They appeared to have a set of clothes that were in the scheme of camouflage clothing, while the one with the bandaged face had a long-sleeved tunic that covered his arms, and a massive fur-like item on his back. The spiky-haired one looked at the sight and spoke to the one in bandages. So what do you think, Dosu? Nothing special today, Zaku. Just weaklings. However, that blonde kid with the sword, the Uchiha kid, and that rat from the village of Hidden Sand, they are a far different breed. We're going to have to keep watch on them. In the Hokage Tower. All right then. We need to start the selection of viable genin candidates for this year to participate for the Chunin exams, so to start it off, I would like the current genin rookie team leaders of this year's batch to please step forward. Sarutobi looked on as the 3 jonin in question stepped forward. Naturally this included Hitaki Kakashi, Yuhi Kurenai, and Sarutobi Asuma. The 3 jonin were exceptionally gifted ninja, and the elder Hokage knew that to be true for Kakashi. After all, he had become a Chunin at half Naruto's age. Kurenai was the village's top genjutsu specialist and a skilled kunoichi of her own right. And his son Asuma was very talented as well, not only with his trench knives, but his other skills and talents that he honed over the years. Now then, Kakashi, Kurenai, and Asuma, what do you say? Do the 3 of you have any genin in your respective teams who you believe have the potential to be candidates for this year's Chunin exams and wish to recommend, despite their relative inexperience? As you 3 are aware, any genin who has officially taken part in 8 or more missions is already considered technically eligible for entrance to the Chunin exams. Beyond that requirement, only you have the authority to decide if they are ready, though most genin require a longer training period, and twice the number of missions specified. Iruka did not really like the situation that much. There's really no need to talk about this. It's still too early for their teams to be in the Chunin exams to begin with. So, what do you say, Kakashi? You being first. The silver-haired Jonin already had an answer to that. He knew that while others might see his move as dangerous, or insane, especially Iruka, he had a feeling that his team, all of them were going to really shine this year and he was going to let them take this chance. With that in mind, he gave his answer to Sarutobi. I lead Squad 7, and its members are Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, and Sakura Haruno. I, Kakashi Hatake, recommend all 3 genin to take part in the Chunin selection exams. Iruka gasped that statement. Yuhi Kurenai also took the same stance as she spoke. And I led Squad 8, and its members are Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame, and I, Kurenai Yuhi, recommend all 3 for the Chunin selection exams. And I led Squad 9, and its members are Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamaiki, and Ino Yamanaka, and I, Sarutobi Asuma, recommend all 3 for the Chunin selection exams. The reactions of the Chunin in the room were very much understandable, as they had not expected this action in a very long time. It wasn't often that genin who were merely rookies were all sent to the Chunin exams. Iruka, on the other hand, was the only one who was against the whole thing. Just a darn minute, Lord Hokage. I must protest on this course of action. The 3 Jonin faced Iruka, and so did the 3rd Hokage. Sarutobi had a feeling that with the announcements that Kakashi, Kurenai, and Asuma made, that sooner or later, someone was going to protest, and it made sense that the one who would was Iruka himself. The scarred Chunin stepped forward as Sarutobi spoke. Yes. What is it, Iruka? With all due respect, Lord Hokage, the names of the 3 genin teams are the names of all my former students from the academy. While I acknowledge that they had potential and promise in their own right, they are not yet fully experienced genin, and sending them to the Chunin exams this early will break them badly if they fail. Kakashi then faced Iruka. When I was at least half Naruto's age, Iruka, I was already a Chunin. Naruto is not the same as you, Kakashi. He is himself, and while he may be no longer under my care, he is still my student. I understand that this is not what you expected, but the 3 of them have wanted a chance to prove themselves, and the Chunin exams are the best choice at this moment. A little pain, though not too much of course, will be a good lesson for them. What? Kurenai was not liking this situation all that much between Iruka and Kakashi, and she made that clear as she stepped into the situation. You've said enough, Kakashi. That's enough for now. Not really, Kurenai. I will say this, Iruka, you should know that the day they left the academy, they were no longer your students, they are mine, namely Naruto. Iruka glared, and so did Kakashi, but the Jonin softened a bit and gave a slight smile. Besides, considering certain events in their performance in missions, namely in Wave Country, I have no doubts that Naruto is already ready to participate in the Chunin exams, don't you think so? Iruka looked on with stunned eyes as he knew what Kakashi was referring to. However, there was another who spoke to Kakashi, and it was another person who was a Jonin, though he was dressed in a totally different fashion than Kakashi, Kurenai, or Asuma. The Jonin had a bowl haircut, the thickest eyebrows a person would have. He was dressed in a green skin-tight bodysuit and wore large cloth bracer-style leggings on his lower legs. The Jonin looked seriously at Kakashi and spoke. In that regard, Kakashi, I have to side with Iruka. I prevented my own genin team from taking the last Chunin exams so they could further refine their skills, gain experience, and enjoy their youth. What you're doing is a bit unconventional in my eyes, at least. Kakashi, however, smiled underneath his mask and replied to the words of his fellow Jonin. I can understand that, guy, but I think my newly formed team has quite a lot of potential this year, and who knows, they might even give your team a run for their money, or take them on and win. The other Jonin gave a look of challenge with a smirk as well at Kakashi. Oh really now? Asuma then stepped in. That's enough, you two. We need to get them ready instead of going off the gun on this today. That is correct. However, I would like to have a few words with the both of you, Kakashi and Iruka. There are some matters that have to be discussed. The rest of you will have the time to get ready your teams. When you are ready, give them the customary application forms. Later, as Naruto walked back to his apartment to check the number of days left before he would take part in the Chunin exams, he wondered on some things as he hoped he could finally prove himself better than Sasuke and face some really tough competition so he could really grow stronger, not just to become Hokage, but to be ready to face the soon-to-be chosen wielder of the Death Fang. For now he decided to get his wallet and have some cash to buy him some food. Master Naruto. Yeah, I mean no offense, but I suggest you order more amounts of healthier foods as well for your lunch. You will need proper nutrition and energy to use the powers and essences that you will soon be able to use with the right amounts of time and training. All right then. By the way, I've been meaning to ask you more questions. Are you up for it? Since Lord Faldron's manifestation has filled in the key details, then yes, I am ready to answer whatever questions you might have, Master Naruto. Well, Lord Faldron, he mentioned that I still need to train long and hard in order to use the higher level essences. Just how many essences do you have in you? Quite a lot actually. There have been many who have ever wielded me in combat. And many of them had exceptional powers and skills. Many were talented sword masters and were quite talented in many levels of weapons mastery, though there were just as many of them were a bit unconventional to say the least. What do you mean by that? Well, some of the ones who were chosen as dragon champions were spell masters, who used my powers both as a supply and as a booster, while only using me for self-defense. Others were skilled hand-to-hand combatants who used me as a last resort or as a form of intimidation to avoid combat when they saw it as unwise. Some were powerful healers who used my powers to heal or destroy those who were unnaturally brought back to life. The list would be going on and on, Master Naruto. Suffice to say, I have been in generations worth of battles and served generations of dragon champions in each battle. So I can call on those essences to boost my powers and skills. Correct, Master Naruto. I will be able to then allow the essence you've chosen to flow into your body. Once that is done, that chosen dragon champion essence will then bestow its abilities and skills to you, such as Grandmaster level sword skills, high-level hand-to-hand combat, which in your world would be referred to as taijutsu if I guessed right, or high-level spell mastery, and the like. However, I can only use one essence at a time, and until you are better trained, it would be best that you choose the essence that suits the battlefield and the foe. And the essences of those you can use at the moment, which are limited right now. Wow, there is one more thing I need to ask you. What would that be, Master Naruto? Lord Faldron mentioned something about me being able to call dragon allies. What are those? Ah, well, many dragons who contributed their powers in my creation. As you might have guessed, also contributed their own blood into my forging. Not only has this given me mystical properties and physical properties, but with the right energy, I can actually create a living, breathing dragon to come to the aid of my wielder, such as yourself, Master Naruto, and since I chose you and obey your commands, those dragons will obey only you in effect and will aid you well. However, the only one of my creators I cannot perfectly create or sustain is my father, Lord Faldron. I can do it, but it is the most taxing of the dragon allies I can call upon. Therefore I recommend summoning Lord Faldron's familiar on only the most dire of situations, and I can only summon a handful of dragon allies as well, so I can't raise an entire flight of dragons in a moment. Whoa, wait a minute. You can summon a living, breathing dragon. You've got to show me how it's done. You wish it now, Master? Of course I do. This is going to be cool. As you wish, but we will need to be at a large clearing for this to work. More than once, people have panicked at the sight of a living, breathing dragon coming out of thin air, and I have no doubt things will be even more pronounced out here. Good point. With that, Naruto moved away from his usual direction towards the ramen stand and headed for the practice field. as much as he was in the mood to finally get a bit to eat after all the things that had been happening to him. This new discovery demanded that he look into it as soon as he could. Later, Naruto smiled as he was in the practice field and looked about to make sure that no one else was in the area to just walk in and either mess things up, or when he and Holy Talon summoned a dragon, wouldn't start causing a panic back in the village. As soon as he was sure that no one else was around except him and his sword, he spoke to Holy Talon. "We're all clear, so how do you actually go about summoning a dragon?" "That's the real trick, Master Naruto. I want you to make these symbols with your hands and fingers, and focus on me and I will channel the energy. Once that's done I can take care of the rest, at least at this stage." Naruto followed the advice and began to make movements with his hands and fingers. They then glowed in a gentle green light and the symbols he made hung in the air and began to move in a unique pattern that resembled a circle that then placed itself on the ground. Once they did, they seemed to create a gentle glow and a humming sound. "Now, say this phrase, born of earth, born of fire, born of air, born of water, in harmony with the world of the material and the immaterial. Servant of all that is good, and kin of the holy dragons, I call you forth to me in peace or war, come forth summoned one. When you do, stab me into the ground, I will do the rest." Naruto nodded and did as Holy Talon instructed him to do, and when he said the phrase and stabbed the Holy Talon into the ground, the sword glowed brightly and the ground in the middle of the circle formed by the symbols began to turn into a glowing white liquid, and from that liquid arose a dragon. The dragon that was summoned was smaller, about the same size as a one-story house, but was long, nearly 16 feet from the tip of the snout and the tail. It was smaller than Faldron, but was no less beautiful as it had shimmering blue scales that resembled a pure and clear ocean and were smooth and in a flowing pattern. The head was shaped in a very unique fashion and there were no horns on the head, but long fins on either side of the head and several whiskers near the nose and upper lips. The wings on the dragon were the same as that of a bird's and had feather-like scales on it and even feather-like parts on the edges. It had 4 limbs that acted as legs and it too had claws, though shaped like those of the hawks used by the village as messengers. The tail end was smooth and well-shaped and the tail tip was covering in what appeared to be frills that were shaped like a bird's rear feathers, and a small row of bone-like knobs lined its back and neck, all the way to the tail. And to the blonde's amazement, there appeared to a saddle of some sort on the dragon's back that could hold 3 or 4 people, along with a harness and reins. The dragon turned at its eyes were in the color of melted copper, and it also spoke to Naruto as he looked on in awe, showing sharp but small yet no less lethal teeth. "Greetings, wielder. I am here as you command. Who are you? My draconian name is Long Wielder, but you can call me Kale Sky Runner if you wish, or merely Kale if that suits your tastes more." Kale, Well, I wanted to see if I could really summon a dragon, and I guess I can, but why do you have a saddle of some sort on your back? "I am what you might call a sky dragon mount, young wielder. It is my duty to carry a dragon champion to a battle when traveling by land is too dangerous and his presence is direly needed, along with 3 companions, or if his foes are in the skies above him or her." Naruto was in awe as he walked towards Kale and placed Holy Talon back into its sheath. His awe got the better of him and after some difficulty, he sat in the saddle and got used to the feeling of it. He then looked at the dragon who looked back at him. "Can I take you for a ride, Kale?" "Of course, wielder, though I will only impart one piece of advice for you." And that is? The dragon grinned at that and seemed to crouch down, as if getting ready leap into the air. "Hold on tight." The dragon Kale then leapt upwards, and as if in a split second, the dragon opened its wings and flew into the air at high speed, surprising Naruto greatly as he quickly grabbed onto the reins and the dragon began to move through the sky at amazing speed. Naruto closed his eyes a bit in fear, but as he calmed himself and opened his eyes once more, he found himself in the clouds, looking at the clear blue sky and the sun shining brightly. He saw flocks of birds nearby, and he felt the rush of air all around him. He looked down and saw the village and the lands below as they circled Konoha in the clouds. It was so new and scary, but instead of being afraid, Naruto was not feeling fear, but excitement, joy, and elation. This is so cool. I'm actually flying in the sky. I hope you are ready for some quick aerial maneuvers, young wielder, because this is merely the warm-up flight. Naruto was ready this time as the dragon turned to the left and began to move through the clouds and flew at the mountains a great distance from Konoha. As they came to the mountains, the dragon moved through the caverns, canyons and ravines at high speed, moving with seemingly no effort, and even as the caverns, canyons and ravines became smaller, the dragon merely closed its wings, but even with its wings folded closer to it, the dragon moved as if with no effort. Naruto was in awe and joy, until he spotted the end of the canyon, but before he could warn Kale, the dragon merely flew upward with no effort and spread out, and the dragon spun itself in a spiral into the clouds. They entered a cloud bank and Naruto only saw white for a moment and then the deep blue sky and the warmth of the sun. The dragon then made several zigzag flight patterns, loops, through the clouds, and with climbing runs and dives in between. They then came to the coast in only a few moments and the dragon flew to the water, and the power of its flight merely feet from the surface created waves, and even dolphins leapt out of the water to follow the dragon as it flew overhead. Kale then flew back to land in a spin and flew to the right and then repeated the same trip through the mountains, and Naruto couldn't hold on to his elation anymore as the two of them moved about over Konoha. He realized that no ninja from Konoha, or anywhere else for that matter, was able to ride a living, breathing dragon and to fly in the skies with absolute freedom like he was at this very moment, and to know that was enough to make the blonde ninja shout out in pure victory as they were once more over Konoha. The blonde kid was shouting, whooping, and cheering as the dragon took him all around Konoha in the sky, and they even did corkscrew climbs and dives every chance they got, and the blonde's elation was really getting higher as he shouted out his pleasure at this new dimension of his gifts from the Holy Talon and his status as a dragon champion. Unaware of the fact that his whoops and shouts were already causing quite the commotion in the ground below him as the growing number of genin coming into Konoha, along with the various officials and leaders, were all looking for the noises that were seemingly all over the place. In the Hokage's personal chamber. Well, Naruto is certainly getting into the spirit of things. He's actually flying in the sky above us on a real living and breathing dragon. Kakashi said with apparent awe as he, Iruka, and Sarutobi watched from the Hokage's personal viewing sphere. The Jonin and the Chunin were told by Sarutobi what had transpired. Then he had spoken with both Faldrin and Naruto when he was alone with them. They were stunned at what they were told, and it was then that Sarutobi was told of strange shouting noises all over the town that they looked in the sphere. Unbelievable, so that's a real dragon. Iruka said with awe at the sight of his student Naruto actually riding one right above his head. The Chunin looked at the dragon as if trying to convince himself what he was seeing was the real thing and not some elaborate illusion. It seems that Naruto has decided to experiment with the powers of Holy Talon. And from what its chief maker, Faldrin, told me, that is just one of the gifts Naruto has been given with his being the chosen wielder of Holy Talon and the new dragon champion. It seems that Kakashi's arguments have merit, considering that Naruto is more than qualified to be in the Chunin exams. Don't you think so, Iruka? Sarutobi said as he looked at the images before him, and he noted that Naruto was already being brought back to the ground by the dragon he was riding. The way Naruto acted showed that he was becoming more skilled with his newfound powers and abilities, telling the third Hokage that Naruto was truly changing. They all watched as Naruto got off the dragon with a warm smile, and the dragon faded back and Naruto went straight to the ramen stand's direction. I guess so, Lord Hokage. So forgive me for acting the way I did before. I know Naruto is strong and full of potential, as are the rest of his classmates from the academy, but still, It's not exactly easy on me as I have been their teacher for a long time. Kakashi nodded at that. No one here's disputing that Iruka, but Naruto is craving a challenge to reach his dreams, and the Chunin exams are the closest chance he has now. If we deny him that, then he would never be able to grow up to be the ninja he wants to be, and if what the Lord Hokage said is true, he will not be ready if the Death Fang does awaken and find its own wielder. The same could be said for all your former students as well. Their time to shine has come, and the Chunin exams will prove to be the best chance they have. Iruka sighed as they watched Naruto get off the dragon and bid it farewell as it faded away, and the blonde went back to the village to his favorite food stand. He's really going to be happy when you tell him this, Kakashi. Don't I know it? In the Ichiraku stand, Ayame was still looking at Naruto wide-eyed as the blonde ninja was gulping down his third helping of ramen. Now seeing Naruto eat ramen like there was no tomorrow was not a new thing, having been doing that for nearly his entire life since she had known him, but now it was different, namely because of the new looks Naruto had. When he arrived, she gave him her usual greeting, but stopped and suddenly blushed bright red and stuttered as she saw Naruto's new looks. Naruto gave her the usual smile he gave, but with his new looks, Ayame felt her body react in a very unique fashion. She had asked him if it was really him, and Naruto replied that it was indeed him. Her father commented on his looks and made both of them blush brightly when he mentioned that Naruto was going to be one hell of a ladies' man, considering how much Ayame was blushing. For that, he was going to half the price of the entire menu for his favorite customer. Naruto was more than happy, and he was eating a lot right now. Naruto-kun has changed, he's so handsome. Ayame then blushed bright red as she began to have impure thoughts concerning her and Naruto, but she couldn't help but smile at them as well. Naruto finished his last bowl and sighed as he was now full, as there were already at least 3 piles of bowls, and smiled warmly at Ayame and Tsuki and spoke. Man, that hit the spot. I'll see you all later, old man. See you, Ayame-san. Bye, Naruto-kun. Tsuki smiled slyly at Naruto and then to his daughter, who was still blushing bright red as she had her eyes on the blonde ninja. Careful, Ayame. Naruto may be a genin, and an adult in the eyes of the law now, but he is still a kid, though give him a few years and if he gets even better looking, I don't mind at all if you do the mattress dance with him. Just make sure to tell me how he is in bad. Father. Tsuki merely laughed while Ayame blushed bright red at the thought of being intimate with Naruto. The next day, Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto waited for Kakashi once more, and they were not happy with the fact that as usual Kakashi was late. Sakura sighed and she couldn't handle it anymore and shouted. What is with Kakashi-sensei? He's always late. Every time he sets the time, he arrives late. I woke up early and had to eat light for this sort of thing. Easy, Sakura-chan, I've had it worse. I had to skip breakfast entirely. Sasuke sighed at his 2 teammates and then looked upward as Kakashi showed up and greeted them in his usual fashion, which once more included another flimsy excuse for his tardiness. Hi there, you 3. Sorry I'm late. I ran into a black cat along the way and had to take the long route. You're late, you liar. Kakashi leapt off the archway and got down to business as Sasuke walked over to the rest of the team. Well now, I've got good news for you 3. I know it's a little sudden and you 3 do need to train more and get more experience, but I have selected you 3 to take part on this year's Chunin exams. Sasuke smiled widely at that, and Naruto's eyes were in saucer-shaped mode as he was in awe. Sakura gulped a bit, but smiled as she recalled that she had her own talents and kept her cool. These are the application forms that officially place you as Chunin exam entrants. Application forms. Stop repeating my words, Sakura. Now listen up. You have to be in room 301 on the 3rd floor in the academy once you sign them. And just so you all know, this is all purely voluntary. If you feel that you're not ready or qualified to take the exams, then you can wait for the next year's Chunin exams. Naruto was happy and made it obvious as he hugged Kakashi. You're the best, Kakashi-sensei. Now this is a real challenge. The Jonin expected that from Naruto, but it was a bit uncomfortable for him. Not to mention the fact that Naruto's enhanced strength, while not that painful, was unexpected to say the least. Stop that, Naruto, or you'll start drooling all over my vest. Oh, sorry. Naruto released his grip on the Jonin and was laughing out loud. Easy there. One more thing. You three have 5 days before the start of the exams start, so think long and hard on this choice of joining the Chunin exams. This is a serious matter, and when you step in, you can't back away from it, so choose wisely. Since that's it for today, I'll see you there at the academy. You guys are dismissed. As Naruto walked back to his home, along with Sakura and Sasuke, he was having a fun time thinking things over. This is so cool. I am going to face some really tough guys, and I can't wait. I might even fight Gaara in combat, not to mention Mr. Attitude himself. This is going to be one heck of a few days. Sasuke thought in his own way on the Chunin exams. This will be a good test of the Sharingan, not to mention fighting those ninja, namely that one with the gourd, and I will finally get to see just what else that sword Naruto has to offer. Sakura, however, thought about what she should do. She was worried, but she wanted to prove that she was a good ninja of Konoha. But she had enough time to get ready for the exams and enough time to prepare herself for whatever the exams had in store for her. After all, she had 5 days to prepare. So despite her worries, she was ready to back up both Sasuke and Naruto. As time passed, more and more genin from different villages arrived on the scene, and as the days passed, the genin and their jonin leaders were all given accommodations for their stay in the village of Konoha. Naruto himself was busy studying a number of fighting styles involving swords, taijutsu, spells, and refining his use of Kage Bushin, all under the training and advice of Holy Talon, along with using the essences of the dragon champions that he could access at his current skill level and capacity. Sasuke was busy refining his own skills, though he used the Sharingan more often in order to better use its abilities and to further improve it for battle, while Sakura was busy working hard on what she could in order to support her two teammates. In another part of the Konoha training ground. Did you hear? We're going to have first-year genin from the academy this year. All of them are rookies. That hasn't been done in 5 years. A training dummy made of straw was the day's target, as it had a large number of kunai and shuriken embedded in it. A hand wrapped in bandages was near it. No way. I bet it's just a bunch of jonin getting in to boost either egos or get a kick out of it. A female voice said, and the voice belonged to a woman wielding a kunai in one hand and with surprising skill began to flip the weapon and spin it about without being cut at all. No, it's a bit more interesting than that, Tenten. 3 of those students happen to be from Hitaki Kakashi's team, and I happen to know that they happen to be the only team that has ever passed in his bell test. The first voice belonged to a boy who wore the very same garb as the jonin named Guy, so much so that he even had the very same haircut as the jonin and had bandages on his other arm as well, and wore his forehead protector which had the symbol of Konoha but in a belt style, similar to Guy, so much so that he might as be Guy's own son. Really? Are you sure of that, Lee? I'm positive. The girl known as Tenten was ninja as well. Dressed in a sleeveless dress and wore deep green pants with sandals, she had her forehead protector with the Konoha symbol in the normal style, and had her hair in a style that meant that most of her no doubt long hair was well placed to stop flowing about, and it seemed that her longer hair was made into 2 buns on the side of her head. I see. That's certainly interesting information. I hardly think it's that interesting, Neji. Tenten wasted no time and threw the kunai in her hand and struck the target, just above the head of the one named Neji, who was dressed in a thick jacket with clasps, and wore his own forehead protector with straps on the sides. He had eyes that seemed to be devoid pupils for some reason and was pure white, yet he seemed to be able to see with as much clarity as the 2 others who were with him. Either way, it's going to be too bad for them. The next day, where's Sakura? It's not like her to be the late one this time, Naruto asked as he looked about for their pink-haired teammate outside of the academy. He and Sasuke had arrived at least half an hour early to get ready for the exams, but it seemed that they couldn't go in yet until Sakura was with them. I'm not sure where she is, but she'll be here, so don't worry about that. It was then that both genin turned to see their pink-haired teammate as she came running towards them. Naruto smiled and Sasuke sighed a bit and looked on. Sakura stopped and gasped a bit as she tried to catch her breath. As soon as she was able to get her breath back, she gave an apologetic look to both teammates. Hi Naruto-kun. Sasuke-kun. Sorry I'm late. I had to help my mom with some grocery items when she got back from the market. Naruto gave his usual smile and nodded as he spoke. That's okay Sakura-chan, you made it here anyway, so let's go. As the three of them made their way to the third floor, they noted something odd. Naruto wondered what that was about, and so did Sasuke and Sakura, and they quickly figured it out that there must be genjutsu in the area. They then spotted a large number of genin who were gathering about in the area before them. What's going on here? Naruto asked as they got closer. Sasuke nodded and spoke. The only way we're going to find out Dobi is to see for ourselves, right? Quit calling me that. Hey. The three of them arrived to see a strangely garbed boy with even stranger haircut and bushy eyebrows get knocked back by a pair of Konoha genin, one of whom appeared to be armed with large versions of kunai, the other had his Konoha forehead protector in the way of a bandana of some sort. Naruto quickly noted something odd about that and whispered to Sasuke and Sakura. There's something odd about those two. I can't say for sure why I think so, but I do. Sakura looked and nodded at that. She too noted that and quickly analyzed the situation. That must mean that they're the ones who's got the genjutsu set up on this floor, and considering that, they must be Chunin in disguise. They're usually the ones who handle a good portion of the Chunin exams, from what I've heard. Sasuke nodded and smiled a bit. Good eyes, so I guess it's time we end this test. They must be the ones to determine who's willing to go far enough to be a Chunin. Naruto grinned as well. Then it's their lucky day then, 'cause here comes Kakashi's Team 7. The three stopped whispering as they made their way through the crowd as the two rowdy genin, Chunin in disguise, made comments to the genin they knocked over and his female companion. The two then faced the trio, with Sasuke in the lead, while Naruto studied the genin on the floor. That guy's got the weirdest fashion sense I've seen, makes me happy I had a wardrobe change. True enough Master Naruto, but I have a feeling that there's more to this genin. Those bruises he has don't match any type of wounds I know of. So he's faking it, quite possibly. Either he's also a Chunin in disguise, or he's hiding his skills intentionally, and it seems he's quite good at that. Naruto had no time when he heard Sakura gasp and quickly turned to spot the disguised Chunin throw a kick at Sasuke. He reached for Holy Talon and drew the weapon halfway out of the sheath when he sensed movement that somehow got past him, and to his astonishment he spotted the formerly downed genin in the green bodysuit grab both Sasuke and the Chunin's kick with both hands. It seems I was right, Master Naruto. You're right indeed, that guy's fast, I'll give him that. Sakura herself was surprised at how fast the new genin moved, and so was Sasuke as Lee released both their legs. The other genin's apparent teammates were talking to him and the long-haired one appeared to be talking to him. This allowed Naruto to study them carefully, while Sasuke traded words with the apparent leader of the bunch. That guy has the same eyes as Hinata, that must mean he's a Hyuga clan member. Pardon Master Naruto, but you know this clan? Not personally. I know that I have a classmate from my academy days whose name is Hinata, and her clan is supposed to be one of the more powerful clans here in Konoha. Something to do with a powerful gift called, what was that again? Ah yeah, now I remember, they call it the Byakugan. It's supposed to allow others to see chakra and it serves as the basis of their fighting style. Though I've never met this guy before, he seems kind of driven for some reason, like he's got this entire mission and burden on his hands or something. That gift is similar to the dragon's eye then. Dragon's eye. What's that? It's a natural gift that allows certain dragons a limited ability to see the past, present, and the possible future. I know my chief creator and father Lord Faldrin possessed a very powerful dragon's eye, and it helped him call the ceasefire and naturally led to my creation, and I know that certain members of the Chaos Dragons have the same gift, and Chorvax was the most adept to use it, which led to the creation of Death Fang. Wow, I didn't know that. Do you have something like it? Not in the pure form. I can only make a powered-down version of it that I passed down to you when you first took hold of me back in the water. Wow, you mean I can see the future? No, I'm afraid not, Master. Such a thing is forbidden for mortals, even dragon champions. The future, in my Lord Faldrin's words, is something one must make for himself or herself. It means that all beings have the ability to make their own future, as the dragon eye only sees a possible future, one that can change in a heartbeat under different circumstances and events. Personally, I find that to be a great boon and lesson. Fate's something that beings such as yourself must make with their own hands, Master Naruto, just as my master and his kin allowed the mortal races in their realms make their own decisions. You're right there. I'm happy you chose me to be your wielder. All the advice you give me certainly helps loads. You are welcome, Master Naruto. So how does this version you have of the Dragon Eye work? It allows you a limited ability to sense attacks and how to best counter them. As I said, it's not perfect, and has its flaws, but in the right moment, it will be the difference between life and death in a fight. Good ability it is then. Very much. Ah, it seems you're being studied, Master. It was during Naruto's mental conversation with Holy Talon that Tenten noted his presence. She had thought Sasuke was cute, but the moment she gazed at Naruto, her thoughts of Sasuke being cute were put aside as she gazed at Naruto's features. She was amazed that he looked so mature and handsome despite being a genin, and he was certainly well built for his age. Not to mention, she had enough time to note that Naruto was looking back at her, and he smiled in greeting, making the brunette Kunoichi blush bright red. Wow, the blonde's hot. That pink-haired girl has no idea how lucky she is to have two hot guys in her team. Maybe I could ask her if she knows where they live, namely the blonde one. I wonder if Stop that, Tenten, lest you start thinking the wrong things. Naruto himself was getting ideas as he had to admit that despite some initial discomfort with all the staring, he was getting used to it, and found it nice. I guess I can get used to this. I see you're enjoying all the attention, Master Naruto, from your physical changes. Good for you, though I would caution you about entertaining thoughts about such meetings at this point and time. You are participating in the Chunin exams after all. Good point. Naruto then spotted Sakura berating the green spandex jumpsuit wearing guy and felt sorry for him. He had been under the brunt of Sakura's temperament more than once and personally knew the feeling, though she seemed nicer now than before. Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun, we should head out and find the real room. We've wasted enough time here. With that, the pink-haired team grabbed both their arms and began to pull them away, much to their surprise. Neji glared at the Uchiha clan survivor as he didn't like his attitude, and Lee took notice of that too. However, he was also curious about the blonde ninja who was part of the team the pink-haired angel was part of. Despite his silence, the genin felt that the blonde was deep in thought. He decided to see for himself the extent of the power of the Uchiha clan survivor in a match. Well now, so those two group of misfits are the ones Kakashi and Guy have been talking about. I believe so. Congratulations are in order then for their passing of their application forms. The two Chunin then transformed to their normal forms and one of them smiled. This year's Chunin exams is proving to be a lot of fun. For us maybe, but I doubt the genin we're about to test would see it that way. Unknown to them all, it's here. I can feel the power that I heard so much about. It shall be mine, along with the Sharingan. In the academy, Neji looked at the trio as they left the scene with Sakura dragging her teammates along by the hands. He, Tenten, and Rock Lee looked on, and it seemed that things were going to get interesting indeed this year. Neji knew about the Uchiha massacre, and he had to admit that Sasuke was certainly living up to the image of an Uchiha. So that's Sasuke of the Uchiha clan. The black-haired one's pretty bold. Neji, you going to challenge him? Tenten spoke as she looked at her teammate. Neji gave a slight snort and walked away, making Tenten smirk a bit as they headed off to get their team registered, but as they were making their way towards, she noted that their comrade Rock Lee was not following them, but seemed to be deep in thought. Lee, what are you waiting for? We're supposed to be checking in right now. Lee turned and replied to Tenten as Neji stopped and waited for them. I'll catch up with the both of you later, you don't need to wait for me right now. There's just something that I have to check out for myself. Tenten watched as Lee left them, and she wondered just what her teammate was up to this time. With that in mind, she turned to Neji and asked him, "What do you suppose Lee's up to this time, Neji?" "I wouldn't know actually, but we should get going, he'll catch up with us soon enough," Neji replied as he kept on walking to where the real third floor was. As the three genin of Kakashi's Team 7 moved into a large hall, Lee was able to catch up with them and called out to the one he wanted to test a theory on, and knew that now was the time to see how the Uchiha's favored bloodline trait would stand to his brand of fighting, not to mention he wanted to try and get to know Sakura better. "Hey, you with the attitude, hold on." Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke looked back to the higher floor to spot Rock Lee looking at them. Naruto recognized him quickly, while Sakura was not exactly pleased with Rock Lee's arrival, recalling his actions towards her, while being flirty did kind of creep her out a bit, and Sasuke gave an indifferent look to the genin who called them, but he was indeed curious as he recalled how Lee had stopped his kick with only one hand. "What do you want?" "I want to challenge you to the fight, right here, and right now." Sasuke's eyes narrowed a bit at that, and he replied, "You want to fight me here and now?" "Yes." With that, Lee leapt over the edge and landed safely on the floor from where he had been. As he got his footing, the green suit-wearing genin then got to his feet and pointed his finger at himself and gave his name. "My name is Rock Lee of Team 10. He then pointed his finger right at Sasuke and spoke. "You yourself said that it is considered a common courtesy for a challenger to give his name first, am I correct, Sasuke Uchiha?" Sasuke was a bit surprised. Here was a guy he knew next to nothing about, but this one named Rock Lee knew him already. "So you know me already?" Lee then got into a fighting stance that seemed to be quite unique, that Naruto looked at carefully, and so did Holy Talon. The Holy Dragon Sword had known many hand-to-hand combat specialists in its existence back in the world of its birth, and knew a fighter's stance when it sensed it. This one genin seems serious in his intentions for a fight with Sasuke Master Naruto. "Yeah, looks like it. This guy's certainly got the spirit, wonder if he has the moves." "Guess we're going to find out now, Master Naruto. I challenge you, Sasuke Uchiha. Everyone I know speaks highly of the Uchiha clan and how great they are with the Sharingan. Well, I for one wish to test those myths personally, and since you are who you are, then you would be a good test for me." Naruto didn't know why, but he suddenly began to feel like he could respect Rock Lee. Something about this guy's words and the message he conveyed touched him. Long before he acquired Holy Talon, he had struggled to make a name for himself, and he did it through pranks and many other ways, but it was hard as so many people disliked him, with the exception of Iruka-sensei, who was like a brother figure to him, and the third Hokage, who was the closest thing to a grandfather to him. And of course he now had Sakura, Kakashi, and even though he wouldn't admit it, Sasuke. Sakura was naturally his crush, despite him knowing that she was head over heels in love with Sasuke. However, she seemed nicer now, and he decided to pay her back too by being nice to her in return. Kakashi was someone he liked playing jokes on, but he did respect the Jonin, and he did give out serious advice, not to mention that ever since he acquired Holy Talon, Kakashi had been supportive of his time. Sasuke, well, he was a bit complicated. He hated the Uchiha's arrogance and stuck-up nature, not to mention the way he acts around people, always saying, "I'm better than any of you." That nature of Sasuke really grated on his nerves. However, Naruto was not always disliking Sasuke. He had to admit that Sasuke had the skills to back it up, not to mention the bloodline, and he had to admit that Sasuke had lost his entire family to his own brother, and he could only imagine the horror that Sasuke had been through that night to know that one of his own kin did the massacre. Still, that was no excuse to be the way he is now. However, Sasuke was and still is the reason he pushed himself to excel, and for that, he had to actually thank the Uchiha survivor for being his teammate and rival. And also, Lee then directed his attention to Sakura, who gave a very uneasy look when she found out that she was now the center of Lee's attention. This also got Naruto's attention as he had been busy with a discussion with Holy Talon to see what had transpired between Rock Lee and Sakura. He couldn't help but feel the urge to laugh as he suddenly saw the guy blush at Sakura's direction. "Sakura, I love you." Quadruple A ah. No. Naruto was looking at that and tried not to laugh so as to avoid getting Sakura's ire and anger. Despite his dislike for Lee's antics, for some reason, he could tell that Lee was a good guy, and was being nice, though he had an odd way of doing it. "You have the weirdest fashion sense I have ever seen. That's the ugliest haircut I've ever seen in my life, and your eyebrows are so bushy, you're totally weird." Instead of being insulted by Sakura's comments like before, Lee was unfazed, and the next words that came out of his mouth nearly made Naruto burst out laughing. He had no idea why he was finding humor in this situation at first, until he realized that Sakura now had a fanboy of her own and was now probably getting a dose of what Sasuke must go through every time. It was a bit bad to laugh about his teammates' obvious discomfort with the whole situation, but he couldn't help himself at that as he managed to contain his laughter. "You were an angel sent from heaven." And then Lee sent a flying heart to Sakura, who set about trying to avoid it as it hit the pillars behind her with a very weird sound. "Good move there, Sakura. I should have expected that from the most attractive kunoichi here, but I am not giving up just yet. Let's see you dodge these." Sakura was crying out in panic as she saw Lee unleash hordes of hearts right at her direction. She quickly began to dodge and move away as each heart came at her in different areas, and as she did so, they also made very weird noises. The last one made Sakura bend backwards until she hit her head. That was too close. As soon as she was back on her feet, Sakura glared at Lee and made her displeasure known to him. "Hey you, keep those weird Valentine hearts of yours to yourself right now. You had me dodging for my life there. You don't have to be so negative about that, Sakura. I was being nice." Naruto shook his head at this and tried desperately not to laugh. He had to admit, this Lee was something else entirely. He knew that most people labeled him weird apart from the usual band of insults, but Lee beat everything he's ever done, and he could almost swear that Holy Talon was laughing as well, and since the sword chose him, only he could hear the living weapon's laughter. I have to give him credit, Master Naruto. He's not shy about saying what he likes. Yeah, I totally agree. Now then, I wonder if old Sasuke is going to go through with this. This could be good. You don't want to fight Lee yourself? Not really. I don't know his style of combat. What else can you sense about Lee? Apart from the obvious, well, it seems that he has no serious chakra control to begin with, or has very low reserves of chakra, but his physical condition is at a very high level, just the kind you would expect from a fighter who uses hand-to-hand combat. Wait, Lee has no control chakra. That would mean that he can't use genjutsu or ninjutsu, so that would leave taijutsu then. This is going to be good. I can't wait to see just how good this guy really is. Besides, he is challenging Sasuke, so why should I interfere? It is a formal challenge after all. Point taken. You know about the Uchiha clan, yet you still want to challenge me. You must be even more psycho than you look, if that's even possible. You want to know more about my clan? Then I'll be happy to teach you, the hard way. Sasuke said with a dark look on his face as Lee merely extended his right hand and replied with a confident look. Bring it on. Excellent. I finally get to fight the #1 rookie of this year. I will make him draw out his techniques and see just how good he really is. I will make you proud of me, Guy-sensei. Hold it, you two. The group turned to Naruto, who looked at the two of them with a serious expression, totally unlike the normally goofy-looking and jovial blonde ninja as before. While I'm actually looking forward to this kind of a fight, you all realize that we do have limited time before the exams start, so try not to make this an epic battle, just a good one from start to finish so we can get the exams underway. Then he grinned once more. But just because it's going to be a quick bout, try not to make it boring, and Sasuke, you had better be careful. This guy might not look like it, but he's a lot more skilled than he looks. You might be in for one hell of a ride. Quiet, Naruto. I can handle this weirdo. Naruto shrugged. All right then. Go ahead and knock yourself out. But don't say I didn't warn you. Lee here might not look like it, but he's got some serious skills as far as I can see. Lee nodded in agreement with Naruto and smiled a bit at the blonde ninja with the sword on his back. He had thought that Naruto was not into being social since he seemed so silent, but it seems that the blonde was actually observing him. He knows more than he lets on. I'll need to talk to him later and see just who he is. Your blonde comrade is correct, Sasuke. Out of all the top genin that graduated from the academy last year, I am one of the best in my chosen way of combat. Fight me and I shall prove my point. Sasuke thought about it and he had to admit that he did agree with Naruto's words to an extent, as he recalled how Lee was able to stop his kick with just one hand. He smiled a bit and replied to Lee's words, and he was going to see if this weirdly dressed up genin was all he said himself to be, or all talk and no guts. This'll be fun then. All right, I accept your challenge and I'm going to make you regret ever issuing it to me of all people. Sakura then directed her attention to the clock and gasped as she saw the time that they had on their hands, and that was not enough. Sasuke-kun, we have no time for this between you two. We have to register before 3 o'clock or we'll never be allowed into the Chunin exams. Relax, Sakura. This'll all be over in 5 seconds. With that, Sasuke rushed at Lee, intent on finishing this fight with one blow and show why he was the #1 rookie of the year and just what he was made of. Lee, however, kept his cool and focused on the fight in front of him. Good. He made the first move. Forgive me, Guy-sensei. I know that you forbade me using that jutsu, but it seems I will need to use it in this fight with Sasuke. Sasuke launched his attack, but to his shock, Lee faded from the area his punch was in. He stumbled and recovered, but as he turned, he spotted Lee in the air as he shouted his attack. Leaf Hurricane. Sasuke dodged the attack, but as Lee landed, he was already on the offensive as he landed on his hands and left knee with right leg upward and then lashed out with his right with a strike to the head. Sasuke went on the defensive as he realized that he was at a disadvantage as he was open and had to block Lee's attacks. I'm not moving fast enough. I have to block. Lee, however, knew that in advance and place a hand sign. This caught Sasuke off guard as he tried to determine if, like Haku, Lee could make hand seals with only one hand. However, as Holy Talon had sensed, Lee was not a user of genjutsu or ninjutsu and was using the hand sign as a decoy, and Sasuke paid for it as he let his guard down, allowing Lee to hit him hard and send him flying. Sasuke! Sakura shouted as she saw Sasuke being hit by Lee and hitting the ground and skidding until he stopped, while Naruto looked on with some difficulty as he wanted to fight, but he kept his peace as he observed the fight with his hands in his pockets. Lee's got the moves all right. He used that hand sign to make Sasuke lose focus. Sasuke felt the pain of the blow and was stunned. I had my guard up, but he went through it. What's going on? Sakura was also stunned by the sight of Sasuke being hit like that and sent flying. Sasuke-kun had his guard up, but Lee went right through it. Maybe Naruto-kun's right, maybe Lee's more than mere looks. Sasuke got himself to his hands and got up slowly as he tried to think how Lee got past his defenses. He's using some sort of technique to get me. What is it? Is it a genjutsu or a ninjutsu? Lee kept his calm as he held his usual position on the floor, left hand behind him and right hand forward as he waited for Sasuke to make the next move. As I thought, he's coming back for another go at me. Well then, if he's using a genjutsu or a ninjutsu, then I guess it's time I get to use my ace in the hole. Besides, he's exactly at the spot where I want him to be. Sasuke got up and was now ready to give another go at fighting Lee. But this time, he was going to go up a notch and give Lee a taste of what made his clan famous in the village of Konoha. I've been waiting a while to put this to good use. Sakura looked on and was surprised as she realized what was happening. Could it be? She got her answer as Sasuke revealed his eyes, and they were no longer in the usual shade of dark black, but were red, just like Kakashi's left eye, and Sakura knew quickly what that meant. The Sharingan. When did Sasuke-kun learn how to use it? Lee noted that as well and looked on patiently. So, he now reveals the Sharingan. This will be an interesting match. Be it genjutsu or ninjutsu, with these eyes, I will see right through it. Sasuke locked his eyes right at Lee and then charged as Sakura was in awe as she thought that Sasuke had lived up to his blood as an Uchiha, and no one could predict what he'll do next. With the Sharingan, he would be able to read this guy's jutsus and get him good. There was no way Lee could beat Sasuke now. Naruto however had his doubts as he kept on watching, and sure enough he was proven correct as Lee once more kicked Sasuke aside like he was nothing more than a rookie fighter taking on a more seasoned and highly skilled opponent. Naturally the Sharingan user was stunned by this turn of events in a very serious way. He still got past my guard, but how? What sort of jutsu is this guy using that I can't seem to see? Sakura was in shock at the sight as she expected Sasuke to win easily with the Sharingan in hand, but Lee proved her otherwise. The genin then spoke to Sasuke as he watched Sasuke fall from his kick. If you believe that my techniques have anything to do with either genjutsu or ninjutsu, then you are sadly mistaken, Sasuke Uchiha. And for the first time in this battle, Lee was the one on the offensive as he charged right at Sasuke as soon as Sasuke landed and got to his feet. Naruto watched the whole thing and shook his head as the real fight had just begun. As Lee attacked with flurries of kicks and punches at Sasuke, the Uchiha managed to evade a few of the attacks, but the rest hit him hard. As Lee blocked his attacks and fought back as well, he then slammed an elbow strike right into Sasuke's stomach and forced him back in pain and surprise. As Sasuke held his stomach, Lee then spoke to him. Do you understand now my words before and why your blonde companion was correct in saying that I am not an easy foe? My fighting style makes no use of genjutsu or ninjutsu, but taijutsu, that means there are no tricks or illusions, Sasuke. Lee vanished once more to Sasuke's shock and was now right behind him. It's just simple and straightforward martial arts, nothing more. Sasuke gritted his teeth and lashed out at Lee, but the genin avoided his strike and once more was in his neutral position. I know your technique, and I say that you should forget it, because it will not work, not on me. I know about the Sharingan. It gives you the ability to see past a foe's jutsu so you can see their hand signs and their movements and decipher them instantly, allowing you read them and predict their movements and intentions before they know it themselves, and I know that with them you can read your opponent's chakra to further your abilities. However, taijutsu is not the same as genjutsu or ninjutsu. What's your point? The point is simple, Sasuke. I don't hide or disguise my moves. I don't have to in any case. And even if you can see them, you can never block them or stop them. You are too slow. While your eyes may allow you to be one step ahead of me, your body does not have the way to keep up at all. and that is very much true, so how then will you be able to stop me? And you know what the answer is to that. You cannot stop them. Because in the end, your Sharingan is worthless in a fight with me. That hit a nerve as Sasuke growled in anger, and Sakura was getting worried. Naruto however was very impressed and so was Holy Talon. As far as the blonde ninja could see, Lee was the only one person who could face the Sharingan and defeat its advantages in a fight. This guy was definitely living up to his claims to be one of the top genin in Konoha. Lee is correct. As long as Sasuke does not have the physical speed to match Lee's own speed in combat, there's no way he could beat him in a straight-on fight. You're right, he's certainly someone to be wary of. Shame Mr. Attitude's finding that fact out too little too late. You know something, Sasuke? This is what I believe. There are two kinds of ninja in this world, those such as yourself who are born with talent and don't have to work hard on it. Sasuke had enough and attacked, but he had lost his composure and was no longer focused and calm, but Lee was different as he held his ground. And those like myself, the ones who train ourselves with all that we are every second of our lives. Lee evaded several more attacks from Sasuke and then he commented that Sasuke's Sharingan was the worst match with his brand of extreme taijutsu and he was about to show the reason for his statement and he launched out an attack that Sasuke once more failed to block as he was sent into the air once more, but this time Lee was not waiting for Sasuke to hit the ground as he followed him. Naruto's eyes narrowed at this and knew that things were going to be serious from here on in. Lee wasn't playing anymore. He was serious. Sasuke looked to see Lee behind him in midair and knew what this move was. Dancing Leaf Shadow. Good eye, but here is where I prove my point to you. Lee moved his arms and Naruto spotted the bandage tape on Lee's arm begin to loosen and saw that Lee was unleashing a jutsu that must be part of taijutsu style moves. And that point is that hard work beats natural talent. Sasuke knew that this move was a serious one, but he had no idea what to do right now at this point in time as he realized with reluctance that Naruto was right for him to be wary of Lee, and that Lee was right that even with the Sharingan active, he was not able to equalize Lee's speed. What the heck is his next move? You're finished. Sakura looked on in shock and fear as the two genin were in the air, with Lee on the bottom and Sasuke on the top. She had no idea just what sort of move was Lee going to pull out, but she could tell that it was a very serious move indeed. But suddenly Naruto felt the presence of another and he heard something in the air, and sure enough, so did Lee as the end of the tape he had released was suddenly hit by a windmill toy with a metal head on the end, pinning it to the wall. Sakura turned as Naruto did to see just where did that move come from, and Lee also knew that this was not a good sign. This is bad. There was a turtle on the area, a rather big one at that, with red and yellow colors and amazingly enough had a Konoha forehead protector around its neck and an orange band on its right foreleg, and to really surprise everyone, the turtle spoke. All right, that's enough of this. Lee got the message and stopped his attack and left Sasuke wondering what else was going to happen. Sakura shouted out and rushed to help Sasuke as she caught him in her arms. Lee on the other hand was now kneeling before the large speaking turtle in red and yellow, much to Naruto's surprise. Well, that was interesting, but as much as this right now, who or what is this turtle? Sasuke got his breath back and glared at Lee as Sakura checked him out for any further injuries. The pink-haired Kunoichi was really worried as she looked Sasuke over once more to see how he was doing and she asked him, "Are you all right, Sasuke-kun?" Sasuke didn't reply as his anger was very high and that really worried Sakura as she had never seen Sasuke like this before. He's really shook up, he didn't even take the fall right. Lee was very much in a very different mood as he spoke to the turtle. "You were watching us the whole time." "Of course I was. That last technique you tried to use is forbidden, Lee, and you very well know that." "Well, this is new. This Lee's talking to a turtle, and it's talking right back to him." "What kind of turtle is that? I am sorry, I didn't mean to resort to that." Now he's actually apologizing to the turtle. I know this is weird, even for him, but surely that turtle can't be his sensei. Lee suddenly gave a cry of fear as he stood up and began to ramble out an apology to the turtle that apparently had given him a very stern look, making Naruto wonder if there were still things about his world that he knew next to nothing about, and that turtle just might be Lee's sensei. Even Sasuke and Sakura were surprised as Naruto walked over to them and spoke. "Hey guys, what is it, Naruto-kun? No offense meant Sakura. But that weird talking creature that Lee's talking to is a turtle, right?" "Of course it is. Well, this is the first time I've seen a talking one. Though I carry a living sword on my back and speak to dragons who can speak back, so that's not too much for me to take, but the turtle's certainly a new one." "You're a disgrace," the turtle shouted, making Lee cringe in reaction to the admonishment being handed down to him as he stood in attention and focused it on the creature talking before him. "You honestly think you could get away with a bunch of lame excuses such as those you just told me? A shinobi never reveals his techniques to his foes unless it's absolutely necessary. That is such a basic rule, you should know it by heart now." "Forgive me, sir," Lee said dejectedly. Sasuke was livid with rage as he wiped some of the blood and dirt off with his forearm bands as he gazed at Lee. "How could I have lost to that freak? Are you prepared to take the punishment for your actions, Lee?" Yes sir." "Good. Please come out, Guy-sensei." A large puff of smoke suddenly appeared on top of the turtle's shell and there was a new arrival, but he seemed to be an older version of Lee. The same haircut, the same suit, the same leggings, the same forehead belt. The only difference was, apart from age, was the fact that this new arrival had a vest on him and had even bushier eyebrows than Lee, and he was currently in the most outlandish pose any guy would be in. "Hey, what's shaking? How are you doing, everybody? Life treating you good?" The reaction of Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura was of absolute shock and surprise, but only Naruto, being as outspoken as ever when he felt like it, spoke first on what he was looking at. "That guy's got the biggest eyebrows I've ever seen. They're almost alive." Guy didn't notice nor care about that and gave his greeting with his usual grin and shining teeth. "Hi Lee." Sakura was the next to speak. "This is way too weird. Now I can see where Lee's got it. The same soup bowl haircut but even bushier eyebrows." Lee didn't take a liking to that as he had a vein on his head throbbing and turned around with a look of fury on his face and his still covered hand in a fist. "Hey, don't you dare insult Guy-sensei. He's one of the greatest men of the entire world. Don't take that the wrong way, Lee. I'm still trying to get used to the fact I just saw him come out of a turtle." "He did not come out." "It's all right, Lee, give it a rest." Lee sighed and turned to face his apparent sensei. "Yes sir. Now then, time for your punishment, you fool." And right in front of Sasuke, Sakura, Naruto, and Holy Talon, Guy hit Lee right in the face and sent him flying, much to the shock of them all. Author's notes. I won't describe the whole nice guy scene between Lee and Guy because, quite frankly, if I did, I won't stop laughing, but it was fun either way. How could I have lost to someone that lame? Sasuke thought, while Sakura tried not to barf out, while Naruto tried not to laugh out loud at the whole thing, while Holy Talon looked on, and if it had a human form, there would have been a sweat drop there. I've seen plenty of strange sights since my creation, but this one certainly is a new one I doubt I'll be forgetting anytime soon. Naruto then spoke. I know this sounds weird, but it is kind of endearing in a way when they're doing that sort of thing. Sakura didn't like that and replied, Naruto-kun, you can't be serious. Those two are totally beyond weird. As Lee and Guy began to leave, Naruto called them out. Hey, hold on a minute, you can't just leave whenever you like. Sakura also recovered and recalled that the Chunin exams were going to start very soon. And they have wasted a lot of time. That's correct. What about the Chunin exams? You can't just go out. There's no time for fooling about here. Guy turned and realized Sakura's point. Actually, you are right, Lee. It seems that you've not only disobeyed the rule of no fighting, but you've also disrupted the Chunin exams as well, and considering that, I believe that merits a slightly harsher punishment for you, am I correct? Lee saluted Guy and naturally replied, "Yes, sir." Guy once more went into a pose and gave his new punishment for his student. "How about we make it about 500 laps? How does that sound?" "Outstanding, sir." Naruto was about to laugh once more, while Holy Talon was also laughing, while Sasuke and Sakura couldn't believe the two before them, and Sakura summed up their thoughts on Guy and Lee in one phrase. "They're insane. They might be, but they definitely know how to crack me up." "I couldn't agree more, Master Naruto." Gain then directed his attention to the three before them and quickly guessed who they were, namely since they were the only team to pass the hard test of a certain rival of his. "So this is Kakashi's squad They do have some talent. I think I should go and test them a bit." Sakura saw that and she panicked as Guy was staring at them. "Oh no, he's staring at us. So tell me, how is Kakashi doing lately? You know our Jonin-sensei?" Sasuke asked as he looked at the two before them. "Do I know Kakashi? Well, you three could say that your sensei and I are arch rivals for all eternity." "No way. That's no lie. If Guy-sensei says something true then." "That's all right, Lee. A ninja's action speaks far more than words or hours of dialogue." Naruto and Sasuke looked carefully, then noted something. Both of them were surprised that Guy was no longer standing next to Lee, but was now right behind them. "My current record is 50 wins and 49 losses, which as you can see is 1 point higher than his." Sasuke and Sakura were stunned at that as they faced the Jonin, while Naruto was certainly impressed at this discovery, not to mention the speed and power Guy showed in a flash. "Wow, he's even faster than Lee himself." "That would make sense, Master Naruto. Guy must train Lee personally since they wear the same clothes and almost look the same, so it would make sense that Guy is stronger and faster than Lee himself. He does have the potential to match up with your sensei. The fact of the matter is, on a standpoint I am faster and stronger than Kakashi," Guy said with the usual shining glint on the tooth expression, which made Sasuke look at him in shock and ever-growing anger. "His speed is unnatural. He's definitely faster than Kakashi. Is he even human?" Lee then added an even more difficult-to-swallow comment to the mix. "Now do you see, Guy-sensei is the best there is." Guy then looked at Sasuke and spoke to the genin. "I want to apologize for any trouble that Lee might have caused you and your team, and I want you to look at me and accept my apology, not to mention looking at my manly features. He claims he's better than Kakashi. Could all that talk be true? Damn it, I don't think he's making that up for his ego." Guy smiled and then took out a kunai and tossed it at the toy pinwheel that held Lee's bandage tape, loosening it when it struck the pinwheel, as he spoke to his favored student. "Lee, I believe you should accompany these fine young ninja to the classroom where the exams are going to start, right now." "I understand, Guy-sensei." Lee then moved to re-bandage his hand, and that was when Naruto noted the condition of his hands, and so did Holy Talon. "He seems to have the scars to prove his training under Guy Master Naruto. I've seen hands like that among some of my wielders and former dragon champions in the past. Those are the marks of a person with dedication and conviction." Naruto agreed with that as well as he could see that Lee indeed worked his butt off to be that skilled in taijutsu alone. "Remember to give it your best. Lee, I will see you soon." "Yes, sir." With that, both Guy and the turtle vanished and Lee had finished retaping his hands. The genin then spoke to Sasuke, who quickly turned and looked at him. "Hey Sasuke, I have to confess that I was not totally honest with you. There is truth to what I had said before that I wanted to test my skills, but you are not the one I truly wanted to test my skills against. I lied to you in the fight as well. I said before that I am one of the top genin in Konoha, but there is in truth another, and he is on my team. Naruto, however, already had a good idea on just who Lee was referring to since he knew of only one guy on Lee's team. He must be referring to that guy who's a Hyuga then. I came here to finally defeat him. You were merely practice, but now you are a target. The next time you and I meet, it will be in a fight to the finish and I will crush you. You have been warned. With that, Lee leapt up and flipped to the balcony while Sasuke fumed at his loss at the hands of Rock Lee, while Sakura and Naruto looked on. Sasuke faced away and tightened his grip and his teeth at the memory and what Lee had told him. Sakura turned and was very worried about Sasuke. Sasuke-kun. Naruto then looked at this teammate and replied, I did warn you not to take that guy lightly, Sasuke. Now look what happened to you. I guess you still have a lot to master. Naruto-kun, stop saying that stuff, you'll just make it worse. Shut up, Dobi. The next time I face him, I'll be driving him into the ground and on his knees. Really? Who just got his rear end handed back to him? Naruto-kun, please stop it right now. Sasuke then gave Naruto a death glare, but Naruto was far from intimidated and replied, listen, that guy knows a weakness in your Sharingan, and he knows how to use it. Until you find a way to counter that same trick he mastered, there's no chance of beating him easily. Besides, you didn't notice the state of his hands when he took off the tape. Sasuke then recalled that like Naruto, he too noted the condition of Lee's hands before the genin put back on the tape, and he was silent for a moment, which allowed Naruto to speak further to him about what he observed. Those are the hands of a guy who no doubt trains his off until he can't walk the next day, and does it all over again when he can walk the next day. I'll bet Lee's been working so hard day in and day out to be that skilled in taijutsu. He trains a lot harder than you have, and that gives him an edge. Sasuke looked away and had to admit that Naruto did have a good point, but the blonde then replied, but look at it this way. It proves that we're having some serious competition in these exams. It won't be much of a challenge if we fight lower-level foes all the way to the finals, right? Lee's just shown to us that there's some serious talent here to face, and if there's talent like him here in our own village, then who knows about the other villages too? It'll certainly give us all the more reason to push ourselves to the limit and then some. And if we win against them, then that tells us we're getting stronger, am I right? Sasuke looked at Naruto, and for a second he looked at Naruto and considered his words, and to Sakura's relief and pleasant surprise, Sasuke smiled. You're absolutely right, Naruto. It won't be a real test if we fought lower-level opponents all the way to the end. This Chunin exam is definitely worth being in. Naruto grinned and Sakura smiled at that. Right. All right then. Let's go. We don't want to be late for the registration. With that, all three of them made their way to the room, unaware of the fact that there was someone watching them. And this stranger had his eyes on Team 7, namely on Sasuke, and Holy Talon. So, that's Holy Talon. And there's Sasuke. I can't believe the beauty of this, all the eggs in one basket. This will be fun. Later, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke arrived on the real third floor and were already on their way to the main room when they spotted their Jonin-sensei before them, leaning on the door. Kakashi smiled a bit to himself as he spotted his genin team and looked them over, not to mention he approved of Naruto's new look and also the presence of Sakura herself. He knew that things hinged on all of them to be as a team. Well, I'm happy that all three of you are here, namely you most of all, Sakura, for your sake and that of both Naruto and Sasuke. Huh, what do you mean by that, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked as she was very much confused by what Kakashi had said to her just now. She had made this decision to stand by her teammates on her own. That also got the attention of both Sasuke and Naruto, as they also wondered just what was going on here. Now you three can formally be allowed to participate in the Chunin exams. Why do you say that, Kakashi-sensei? Because in truth, Sakura, Only Genin teams of 3 can apply to take the Chunin exams can be allowed to participate in the Chunin exams. That's a formal rule that is very much enforced, and no one Genin is allowed to take the Chunin exams without a team with them. But sensei, you said that joining the Chunin exams was a personal, individual decision. That is correct, I did say that. Then was what you said was a lie, Kakashi-sensei? Not entirely, Sakura, more like a test. You see, it is a personal decision to take the Chunin exams, but that decision can affect the lives of your teammates, in the same fashion as one decision can determine the outcome of a mission and the lives of your teammates. I didn't tell you that, or Sasuke, or Naruto, because I didn't want them to pressure you into joining them. And at the very same time, I didn't want you to feel obligated to join because of whatever feelings you might have concerning either Sasuke or Naruto. I wanted you to decide for yourself if you wanted to take the Chunin exams of your own free will. I see, so you mean that if Sasuke-kun and Naruto-kun came but I didn't join them, then they would. I would not have allowed them to enter this room and take the Chunin exams, if you had not arrived with them of your free will. Then it would have been the end of the road for all 3 of you, but that is now a moot point. Kakashi then spoke with a proud voice, and his Genin team could sense that, and they were also in high spirits. You're all here for the right reasons. Sakura. Sakura blushed a bit and smiled at the pride and respect being given to her by their Jonin mentor. Naruto. Naruto grinned widely in anticipation. And Sasuke. Sasuke smiled as well, ready to test himself in the fights to come. Kakashi then smiled at all 3 of them and made his pride known to them. I'm very proud of you all. I couldn't have asked for a better team under my command. Good luck and do well. With that, Kakashi stepped aside as Sasuke and Sakura were the first to reach for the doors and open them, while Naruto replied with a smile to his Jonin sensei. We won't disappoint you, sensei, believe it. As soon as the 3 of them opened the doors and went inside, Kakashi sighed and looked outside to the windows to view all of Konoha. Inside the room, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were treated to a sight none of them were prepared for, as they were looking at a veritable sea of ninja teams from different villages. Whoa, this is unexpected. I guess we're not the only ones here then. Naruto and Sakura commented while Sasuke merely looked on as they found themselves suddenly being looked at by so many ninja, who ranged from either late teens to adults, and all of them were not giving off a friendly aura in the least as they all glared at the 3 of them. I had no idea there was so much competition here. If being scary looking was part of the tests, these guys have me beat clean to the floor. Sakura thought to herself as she gulped a bit at the glares she was getting. Really unnerved her. Naruto and Sasuke on the other hand were really psyched up for this. However, it was also then that 6 figures were now heading towards them. The 3 groups were also in threes and appeared to be around their own respective ages. One appeared to be a blonde teen kunoichi with bandage wrappings on certain parts of her body, and she even had the same forearm cloth bracers that Sasuke also had. She had her hair in a long tail with a shorter tail on the right side of her face, and she had a lighter shade of blue in her eyes as well. She wore a skirt and blouse style ensemble which was in purple, and had an earring on the left ear. The other wore a vest-style outer shirt with dark olive green lining, and he had a Konoha forehead protector headband on his left arm. He also had a bodysuit of fishnet-style mesh clothing and wore long pants. Plus his hair was done in an upper-facing tail, and he had an earring on both ears as well. The other one was fat beyond most words and amazingly enough, had his hands on a bag of chips and was munching away like there was no tomorrow. He too wore a long outer shirt in dark green color, and had a long scarf wrapped around his neck with the ends on either side of him, and he had long bandage tape on his arms as Rock Lee did. His forehead protector was different as his head was covered except for 2 parts that were on either side, and he had swirl-like tattoos on his face as well. The other 3 came in, and in the lead was a boy with canine-like eyes and had 2 marks in his cheeks shaped like fangs of some sort. He wore something of a trench coat and had a hood with fur lining it and also the sleeves as well on the ends. He wore dark brown pants and amazingly enough, there was a wild puppy riding on the top of his head, and the guy didn't seem to complain in the slightest having the puppy on his head. The other one was a boy with a really messy pile of hair on his head and he seemed to wear a pair of really dark shades and had a coat with a high buttoned-up collar that covered the lower half of his face, along with a pair of black trousers. The last one was a young girl with dark blue-black hair which was short, with two long tails on the side of her head and her own Konoha forehead protector around her neck. She had a face that would be described as very cute and she had the same silver eyes as the one Hyuga that Naruto and his team had met before. She had a large jacket with flame symbols on the arms and her jacket had fur lining on the bottom on the jacket. The moment Naruto looked at the girl, she blushed bright red and looked away even though she walked with the other two towards them. Naruto knew all of them very well, after all they were his classmates. Who are they all, Master Naruto? From what I can sense, you seem quite familiar with them. They are my old classmates in my academy days. We didn't exactly see eye to eye on some issues, but as far as things go, they weren't too bad. Really, since you knew them before I have, care for doing some introductions on them. All right, the first one is the one who's walking towards us with the lazy expression as Shikamaru Nara. Laziest guy in the whole academy and complains a lot. Never does anything about it since all he says that it's either troublesome, or a waste of time. The guy with the bag of chips is Choji Akamaiki, or rather the eating machine as I like to call him. I can't recall a single time I've ever seen not eating, and he eats anywhere. The girl in purple's Ino Yamanaka. She's a rival for Sasuke's affections like Sakura-chan. She's nice looking, but can be annoying at times, though not that much. And the other three. The silver-eyed girl's the one I know as a Hyuga. Her name's Hinata. She's an okay girl and thankfully isn't after Sasuke, but I can't understand why she acts all shy and embarrassed when I look at her. It kind of feels a bit weird, but all in all, she's nice and seems to care a great deal for her comrades and works hard in the academy. Though I never got to really know her since she was assigned with another team, and those two guys with her are her teammates. The one with the dog on his head is Kiba Inuzuka, and the puppy is his pet Akamaru. He's a lot more annoying than Ino since he's always thinking he's cool and all. The other one with the shades is Shino Aburame. I have to admit that I know next to nothing about him. I see. Well, it looks like it's time for you to make the move, since all of them are looking at you. Hey Sasuke-kun, you've made it. And who's the guy with you? I thought you guys had Naruto with you. The new guy's different, and did you get a replacement teammate? Ino asked as she looked at her crush Sasuke but had her attention torn between Sasuke and the tall blonde ninja with the sword on his back and the wicked-looking outfit, along with the strange tattoo of some beast on his arm. The guy was tall and as she looked more closely, she saw the deep blue eyes with what appeared to be silver lining and the long golden hair with slight silver highlights. His face was smooth, masculine and even though he had those whisker marks on his face, they didn't detract his appearance, rather they made him more primal in a male sort of way and he gave a warm, calming, and strong aura, and his clothes seemed to hug his frame a bit and she could see the muscles that he had. And she could help but blush slightly as she continued to study him. He looked so powerful, but there seemed to be something familiar about him. That guy's hot, and as much as I don't want to say it, he's more attractive than Sasuke-kun, but why does he look familiar to me for some reason? I don't recall meeting such a hottie like him before. She wasn't the only one who was looking at Naruto as Hinata herself was blushing bright red as she studied the blonde ninja, but despite the new guy's handsome looks, she was not going to give up her deep crush on Naruto. But she couldn't help but note that the new stranger did seem familiar. Yeah, as I recall, that pipsqueak was assigned to you guys, and I don't recall hearing that you had a replacement. It's a shame too. I'm going to like seeing if Naruto has improved at all. Of course, he can't still beat me in a fight. I've been training for quite a while now and I can beat him easily. Naruto was shaking his head and decided to finally drop the bomb hard on his former classmates and fellow rookies as he stepped forward and grinned at both Shikamaru and Kiba. You guys haven't changed a bit, have you? You're still complaining as much as ever, Shikamaru. You're still spouting your mouth, Kiba. You're still stuffing your mouth, Choji. Lay off with the food once in a while. You're still looking pretty, Ino. Shino's as silent and mysterious as ever, and Hinata's still the same, I guess. Kiba looked at Naruto and gave a growl like a dog, and Akamaru was barking as ever, and while Naruto had no clue as to what the puppy was saying, he could tell that the puppy was pissed. You've got some guts, new guy. Who the heck are you? Naruto smiled once more and replied. Take a good long look, Kiba, and think it over. Who's the only guy in your academy days that likes the color orange, has whisker marks on his face, loves eating ramen, being late in classes and giving Iruka-sensei headaches, and I used a jutsu to turn into a woman to make him bleed and fall to the ground, and I promised to be Hokage someday. Now do you know who I am? The other rookies looked on in shock as it dawned into them. Kiba's eyes widened and Akamaru stopped barking. Shikamaru looked on with wide eyes. Ino looked on in shock. Choji stopped eating for a second. Even Shino was surprised, though no one was sure about that, and Hinata blushed bright red as she realized just what that meant as she looked at Naruto's new features. It was Kiba who broke the ice. No way. No damn way. Is that you, Naruto? Naruto laughed and nodded. Now you've gotten it, Kiba. I hope you're not all talk about your training. 'Cause when you and I fight, I'm going to really put those words of yours to the test, so put your money where your mouth is. Hinata looked at Naruto and she felt her heart beat even faster as she looked at Naruto's features and saw just how handsome he was right now. She recalled that he was nice looking in her eyes back then, but now he was devastatingly handsome. His hair was golden in the light and the silver highlights in his hair seemed to add even more detail to his golden hair. His face was now devoid of the baby fat and seemed to be very well defined, almost like a sculptor had made his face into perfection. She noted slight silver in his eyes and instead of clashing with the sky blue of his eyes, they melded perfectly with one another. She looked and noted that he was taller now, and from the way the clothes he had, namely his muscle shirt, he was certainly more muscular than the last time she had seen him. The clothes made him look so handsome. The Hyuga girl then blushed deep red as she began to have very impure thoughts about her and Naruto being alone together. And she quickly felt her body heat up along with her face as Naruto turned and looked at her once more. She felt all the heat and blood in her body go to three places, one to her face, the other her heart, and the other to the spot between her legs. Oh my! Please stop thinking those things, but Naruto-kun looks so delicious. Ah, did I just think that? I feel like I'm going to faint. He looks so strong. I wonder if those muscles are. No. I mustn't think those things. It's not proper. What would Naruto-kun say if he found out I'm thinking such things? Ino likewise was stunned as she recalled how Naruto looked like when she had last seen him, and compared it to Naruto as he was now, and she was still trying to get used to it. She had no idea that Naruto, who she considered to be a louse and a loudmouth, had somehow changed overnight into this godlike hunk of a teen, and as much as she tried to hide it, she once more began to look Naruto over. And when she was done, she also felt her heartbeat grow faster as she began to have very impure thoughts herself. Those thoughts involved, well, let's just say that some of those thoughts included positions that would have been considered as perverted. Wow, who knew he'd be this good looking? Wait a minute. Why am I saying such things? This is Naruto. No matter how hot and hunky he looks, he's still a loudmouth and an idiot. But I can't help but look at him. He looks so tasty, and those muscles. I wonder if they are as hard as they. What the heck am I saying? Sakura noted the look both Ino and Hinata were giving Naruto, and she was getting even more annoyed. She could understand how Hinata felt. since the Hyuga girl did have a king-sized crush on Naruto, which she no doubt was now amplified by Naruto's changes overnight. But Ino looking at Naruto in the same way she and her would look at Sasuke. This was certainly unexpected to say the least. Who would have thought her rival would now be looking at Naruto like a wolf looking at a meal? And for some reason, the facts there made her feel very uneasy as she saw them looking at Naruto, who seemed to be keeping his cool the whole time. Shikamaru then spoke. "You can't be Naruto. Are you just some jonin who's using a henge?" Naruto smiled at his classmate and replied, "Why don't you guys try using the release jutsu and find out?" The lazy genin did so, and so did Kiba, and when they used the jutsu, they had expected Naruto to be revealed, or the jonin that they both suspected was taking up this form, but to their shock, the situation didn't change in the least. Naruto was still there, with the same looks, and then Akamaru barked at his master and Kiba listened and sighed a bit. "He's Naruto all right, Akamaru's gotten his scent. Now the big question in my mind is what happened to you? It's kind of a long, very long story, but I'm not telling anyone right now." "Hey you guys." All 9 rookies turned and spotted another genin who appeared to be a few years older than they were. He had silver hair and glasses on him. He had long fingerless gloves that reached his elbows, had an outer vest of purple, a long sash on the waist, purple pants, and had a white undershirt on him. "You guys really shouldn't be making a spectacle of yourselves. I mean no offense by that, since you are no doubt the 9 rookies, fresh out of the academy, right? Here's some advice. Just cool it for now. This isn't exactly a class field trip." "Well, we didn't ask for an opinion. Just who are you then?" Ino asked, as she was a bit angry at this newcomer butting into the conversation like it was normal for him to do so. "The name's Kabuto Yakushi, but I guess you should look about yourselves. You've made quite the impression on the others here." The genin looked about and found themselves being looked at by all the other people in the room. Many of the older genin were very, very serious looking, and they were not in the best of moods as they looked at Naruto and the rest of his comrades, both in his team and the other teams as well. 3 other ninja also looked at them as well with very serious looks at them. "You see those 3? They're from the Hidden Rain village and they are very touchy right now. Rub them the wrong way and you're asking for it. In fact, everyone here in the room, all of them are all tense. The Chunin exams is a serious deal to everyone here and they are not in the mood for games." The 9 genin then looked at Kabuto as he gave them a whimsical expression. However, Holy Talon was far from fooled. The sentient living sword sensed something different about this Kabuto and decided that while he was around, it was going to keep an eye on him. For now, the man was not a direct threat to its wielder or his comrades, so for now, the wary sword kept its peace. "Well, I can't blame you guys. You are rookies after all, so how can you all know just how things work here in the Chunin exams? You all remind me of myself when I was a first-timer in the Chunin exams." Sakura then looked at Kabuto and asked him something. "So your name is Kabuto, right?" "That's correct. So this isn't your first time taking the Chunin exams?" "No. To tell you the truth, this is my 7th time to take the Chunin exams." Shikamaru was somewhat surprised at that announcement, and so were the rest of the genin. "Well, the Chunin exams are held at least twice a year, and that means it'll be my 4th year taking the Chunin exams." "Wow, so you're a veteran then?" "You might say that, yes." "Cool. Then maybe you can help us with some inside information here," Naruto said with a smile. Shikamaru snorted a bit. "Some veteran he is. He hasn't even passed the exams." Kabuto gave a sheepish expression and scratched the back of his head with his right hand. "Well, they do say 7th time's the charm, right? So the rumors about the exams being hard are all true, huh? Man, this is going to be a drag." Naruto looked at Shikamaru and replied, "Don't be so darn negative, Shikamaru. We haven't even tried it ourselves yet." Kabuto replied as he took out a large deck of cards and showed them to the 9 of them. and he spoke to the group with a calm and relaxed voice. Actually, I can tell you about things I've learned in the Chunin exams for the past 4 years and the times I have taken it, so I wasn't completely wasting my time while I was here, you know. These are my special information cards. Information cards. Yes, I made them personally. There are at least 200 of them, and while they may not look like much, they are quite helpful in many ways. Here, let me show you one of them. Kabuto placed the deck down and took one of the cards and placed it face down, and then placed one of his fingers on it and began to rotate it. What are you doing? I'm charging it up with my chakra. The cards are blank for a reason. Only the right application of chakra can make them reveal their contents. Plus only my chakra can do it, since the cards have a security chakra system in them. You don't want to go through all the trouble of gathering information and placing them in these cards to have them read by potential enemies, now do you? The group watched as Kabuto completed the action and revealed the information in the shape of a map with special numbers and graph symbols. Wow, those cards are good. Is that a map? Ino asked as she looked at the card that was at first blank and with a poof of smoke was now filled with information. That's right. This is no ordinary map though. This map contains all the currently participating hidden villages and their genin squads who are currently here taking the Chunin exams, and as you can see, the number of genin they send here happens to be pretty big. Now the reason why the Chunin exams are hosted here is to foster brotherhood and equality among the ninja nations. Of course that's true, at least in a certain point of view. What do you mean by that? Naruto asked, a bit curious about what exactly Kabuto meant about the fostering of brotherhood to be true at a certain point only. Well, the other reason is the maintenance of the balance of power. You see, if there is no way to help maintain the number of ninja a particular country has, then there is a big chance that one country might wind up with more ninja than the other nations, and it might be tempted to go to open war with the others. It's happened before. That's why the Chunin exams are needed to maintain the status quo. I'll admit that it's a bit harsh, but it's the only way at times to prevent over-aggression. There are at least 6 villages so far taking the exams. Of course, being the host for this year's exams, we have a large number of genin, including you 9 freshmen. There are those from the village of the Hidden Sand, our current allies. There are also those from the village of Grass, Waterfall, Rain, and Sound. Kabuto then put the card back into its blank state and placed it back in the deck and showed the rest of them. I've also taken the liberty of gathering information on all the contestants here in the exams, including you guys. Naturally, I can't be sure that all the information is entirely accurate, but the data here is all from reliable sources I happen to know of. Sasuke then stepped forward, intent on finding out some information of his own, and since Kabuto had the cards, who better to ask than him? Do you have the cards on 2 guys I want to know about? I might, but you'll need to give me some specifics, a name, appearance, anything, and I'll see if I can get you the information you need. I need to know about Rock Lee from Konoha, and Gaara of the Desert from Sand. Well, that wasn't very thrilling to say the least. You know their names already, so they should be easy to find. Kabuto made some quick moves and in a few moments, acquired at least 2 cards and showed them to Sasuke. And here they are. Who do you want to know of first though? Rock Lee. Kabuto repeated the gesture that he used to show the first card, and sure enough the card revealed the information on Rock Lee himself, along with a chart to show his abilities and the number of missions he had undertaken in his career. Kabuto then spoke the information that he had been able to gather on the one that had beaten Sasuke as the Uchiha clan member. Rock Lee is a genin from Konoha and is a year older than you. His squad members include Tenten and Neji Hyuga, and their Jonin squad leader is Maeda Guy. His skills in taijutsu are unlike most genin his age, second only to Guy, but his other skills, namely genjutsu and ninjutsu, are shaky at best. He gained quite a bit of attention in his graduation from the academy as being the only graduate of the academy through taijutsu alone, but he didn't participate in the Chunin exams that year, so while he's older than you by a year, It'll be his first time to take the exams like the rest of you. And Gaara of the desert. Kabuto placed away Rock Lee's card after resealing it and then repeated the very same procedure on the next card that held Gaara's information. In a moment, the card was covered in white smoke and then Gaara's information came out, along with the pictures of his brother and sister, Kankuro and Tamari. Curiously enough, their Jonin squad leader's picture was not present. Gaara's actually more of a mystery. Not much is known about him, except that he is very moody, violent, and has a killer's streak in him, and he's very dangerous to engage in a fight. But get this, he's been in a B rank mission, but never got a single wound in combat. The ones he took out on the other hand, well, I'll just say that what happened to them when Gaara dealt with them in the fight is best not described on a full stomach. Shikamaru gulped at that little announcement. The guy took a B rank mission, and didn't even suffer a scratch. Naruto would have reacted to the news, but he kept his focus on the matter as he already sensed a lot from Gaara when they first met, not to mention Holy Talon told him about the source of evil it felt that was buried in Gaara's body. I see. Well, that's about it right now. As far as I can gather on those two, there may be some missing details, but as far as I can see, the data on the cards on those two are the most recent I have. Kabuto then directed his attention to the rest of the genin from the various villages, and he looked at the only band of ninja that was a bit out of his own data cards. What about the newest villages? Kabuto pushed back up his glasses and replied. Leaf, which is our village, has the highest number of ninja participants, while the second is Sand, and then followed Rock, Waterfall, and Grass. The smallest number is the village of Hidden Sound. Sound. I've never heard of them before. You're correct on that regard. They have sent only a small genin squad, and there's little that's known about them. What is known is that they're a new village that is located somewhere in Rice Country. Though being new to the Chunin exams, no one knows just how skilled they are since this will be their first time in the Chunin exams. But the villages mentioned have already sent quite a number of highly skilled teams this time on this exam. It seems that way. It's almost enough to make one lose confidence. Hinata blurted out as she understood just what Kabuto was talking about. Ino naturally was not in the mood for it as she turned and spoke to Hinata. Now's a really fine time for you to talk like that. Hinata sighed and Sakura brought that discussion to a close with a question directed to Kabuto. Do you think it's really going to be tough this time around? Oh yes, in my 4 years being here in the Chunin exams, I can tell you honestly that I've never seen a batch with this much potential in years. Kabuto then spoke solemnly. You guys will need to keep a very low profile since if you try something, they will all certainly be very angry to say the least. They all are strong foes, so saying something to piss them off is not advisable. Naruto thought about it and Sasuke and Sakura wondered if Naruto's silence meant that he was getting frightened by all that he had been told by Kabuto. Kabuto himself noted that and wondered if the blonde Konoha genin with the sword on his back would be frightened by the information he had been handing him and his classmates. Naruto-kun. Is he getting scared by all this? Maybe I should talk to him. I mean, it's okay to be scared and all. Those guys are older and more experienced than us since we're rookies. Don't tell me the Dobi's going to choke on this. Please tell me he isn't going to quit here and now, after all we had to deal with to get here. Neither of them had to worry as Naruto laughed out loud and then looked right at all of the other teams and pointed right at all of them with a challenging glare. All right you guys, listen up. I am Naruto Uzumaki and I am going to beat the tar out of every last one of you, so bring it on and show me just how tough you all really are. Believe it. And with that, Naruto reached behind him and took out Holy Talon and with a light stomp, thrust his sword deep into the ground and sent a slight shockwave into the room, making his point a little bit more pronounced than usual. Behind the door, Kakashi was smiling all the while and laughing to himself. I guess I don't have to worry too much. Naruto might not have enough wits to be scared like the others, but he's certainly got bravery in basket loads. This is actually going to be fun. Sasuke and Kabuto were smirking a bit at Naruto's statement. Huh, the Dobi's really on fire now. I guess I was worried for nothing. No matter how many odds you put before him, he's not backing down from any of them. This exams are going to be fun. Interesting. This blonde guy certainly has got guts by the basket loads if he's saying that. Not to mention, that sword, it's got a very strong energy to it as well. This year's going to be fun. The other rookie genin were stunned at Naruto's words to the rest of the other teams, and Sakura was shocked, but then again, she recalled that with the Holy Talon with him and the still undiscovered powers inside the sword, Naruto was very much confident in himself at this point and time. Ino was shocked, though a bit odd, that Naruto was going all out, and so was Hinata, as she admired Naruto's bravery, while the others, even Shino, wondered if Naruto was either acting brave or losing his mind. The rest of the genin were not happy, and quite a number of them itching for a chance to give Naruto a serious lesson to keep his trap shut. In one of the groups were the Sand siblings. Gaara watched with a slight smirk, while Kankuro growled a bit. That's the same guy as before who had that sword on me. Temari nodded as she looked at Naruto with a smile and slight blush. He's really got guts to be saying that. I like that. In another side of the whole room was Konoha Genin Team 10. Tenten, Lee, and Neji were looking on as the atmosphere in the room became darker after Naruto spoke. Tenten sighed a bit and smirked a little as she recalled just what Naruto said. That guy's something else. He's certainly got spirit, Neji replied as he studied Naruto. Lee interjected as well. He's got fire and passion. I guess he's going to be quite the handful, isn't he? One group of genin, however, had other ideas. Did you hear what that one said about our village of the hidden sound? He called us little, a mystery. Zaku said with a glare at Kabuto. I heard. Dosu replied as the only female in their group. The one named Kin spoke as well. I think we need to teach this guy a lesson. I think so as well. Remove some of the mystery about sound, help up his information for him, and let him know that if he insults the sound shinobi, he's going to have to be ready for the consequences. The other genin in the rookies looked at Naruto, who then took back Holy Talon and then tossed it into the air, and as it flipped and then landed blade down, Naruto leaned to the left a bit to show the sheath, and the blade slid right into it without cutting him in the slightest. Kiba and Shikamaru then spoke to Naruto. I didn't hear that. Maybe you should say that again, and a little louder this time. Have you lost what's left of your sanity, Naruto? You want everyone else in this room to hate our guts or what? At that same moment, the sound genin made their move as they dashed towards Kabuto. The senior genin heard the movements but was unsure where they were coming from. The Sand siblings, however, heard them, and Kankuro was about to unleash his puppet from his back, but Gaara stopped him. Kankuro wondered what Gaara was thinking but decided to follow his youngest brother's command and stepped back. Naruto was being told by the others to be more careful with his words, but Holy Talon suddenly spoke urgently to Naruto. Master Naruto, we have incoming threats. 3 attackers closing in on Kabuto, and they are serious ones. Naruto reacted quickly, just as Zaku leapt over a desk and Kabuto spotted him. The sound genin then tossed a pair of kunai at Kabuto, forcing the genin backwards, but Naruto was already there. Using the enhanced speed he gained and with Holy Talon in hand, sliced the kunai in mid-flight. He then sensed Dosu, who ignored him and went straight for Kabuto, who was just getting his bearings. Naruto then recalled a sword skill that Holy Talon had taught him, and he used it as he the sword back and slashed outward, sending a powerful blade of glowing chakra flying out of the sword, and it was aimed right at Dosu's back. Dragon Claw. Dosu sensed the attack and looked in surprise as he was forced to stop his assault on Kabuto and leapt away as the chakra blade flew past him and suddenly dissipated before it would hit Kabuto, who was surprised himself as the energy faded before it could touch him. Naruto then leapt over Dosu and landed in front of Kabuto with Holy Talon in a defensive position with Holy Talon in both hands, near his head and aimed forward with the tip aiming right at the three sound genin. Naruto glared darkly at the three and allowed Holy Talon to glow in white flame, catching the eyes of everyone in the room. He then spoke, but there was something a bit different in his voice, almost like an animalistic growl. "You've got some guts trying that." Dosu looked at Naruto darkly and spoke, despite being surprised of what had just happened. "This has nothing to do with you, punk. The issue we have is with your informant friend there." Naruto growled, almost like a dragon would as Sakura walked over to Kabuto and checked on him. "You okay, Kabuto?" "Yeah, I'm fine." Kabuto then directed his attention to both Naruto and Holy Talon and studied them. He's got exceptional skill with that sword, and somehow he was able to command that chakra-based attack like it was a part of him. Yet there's something different about that sword, it's as if it's not normal. This is interesting. The other genin in the rookie group were surprised indeed as they never saw that move before, though Sasuke was somewhat impressed. After all, he had seen Naruto fight with the Holy Talon before. The others thought that not only did Naruto physically change, but apparently he had trained in some new tricks as well. Gaara nodded. That was interesting. Kankuro nodded, and despite his reluctance, he had to admit, the kid did surprisingly well. "I agree. Never saw that move before. That sword he's got is not ordinary." Temari didn't say anything as she was blushing a bit at that. Tenten was surprised, and so were Lee and Neji. The brown-haired Kunoichi had to admit that Naruto was certainly showing something interesting of himself right now. "It seems he's not all looks and talk." "I agree, he's got the moves as well." Naruto glared at Dosu's words and naturally made his anger known to the sound genin. "I don't give a damn about your issues. You try that again and I'll make sure it's your last mistake." The sound genin glared, though Kin looked at Naruto more intensely than her teammates, and amazingly enough, she licked her lips at the sight of Naruto in his combat form. Zaku then spoke to Kabuto. "Consider yourself lucky this blonde dope's actually got some skills to save your sorry butt, but write this down your information cards. By the end of the exams, the village of the hidden sound genin will be Chunin by the time this is over." Dosu then spoke to Naruto. "And as for you, I'm going to make sure you learn the foolishness of sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, brat. And I'm going to make sure that if you try something like that on me, you're going to be 6 feet underground, pushing up flowers and grass, and acting as fertilizer when I'm done." Naruto shot back, but before things could get really underway, a large cloud of smoke appeared in the room, and a booming voice was heard. "All right, you bunch of baby-faced degenerates. The fun and games are over, so get to your seats and stay there before I personally staple your butts on them." The smoke cleared, and out of the smoke were a large bunch of Chunin, and in the middle was a really tall and muscular man. The guy was dressed in a black trench coat along with the usual uniform of a Chunin proctor, with heavy gloves with metal plates on them, and he wore a forehead protector with the leaf symbol on it in the form of a bandana. He had several scars on his face that really made him look scary, namely the one that ran from his left cheek to his lip, and his voice certainly didn't help matters as he spoke once more. "It's time to begin the Chunin exams. I am Ibiki Morino, your proctor for today, and also your worst nightmare and enemy come to life.